Okay.
Got it.
Okay. My name is Scarlett Sims. I'm the Artist Services Manager for the Arkansas Arts Council, and we are really excited to be able to offer this workshop. It's the first one we've ever done that's like geared toward becoming an actor, maybe even becoming an actor later in life, and kind of what it takes. And this is Barry Clifton, and he's also quite amazing and very interesting to listen to. So thank you very much for being here. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. I'm going to be monitoring the chat, so if you want to drop any questions in there, you can. We also will have the ability, if you want to go to reactions, you can raise your hand and we can ask, we'll take questions during the actual meeting, well, webinar. If time runs out, I'll probably sort of kind of have to wait until the end. So I'll just let you know. But there's also some reaction keys up here, and we would love it if you would participate. And if you have any questions or if you need any more information, please let us know. I'll also be sending this recording to you so you can watch it later. So thank you. Barry, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Now, is one of the reactions throw in tomatoes? I hope that's not an available reaction.
There's a devil.
Well, my name is Barry Clifton. I am a native Arkansan. I was born in Fort Smith and have lived in Little Rock now for, gosh, as my grandfather used to say, since they dug the river through. I've lived in Little Rock for probably 30 plus years now. There's more about me in the slideshow, so I think that's all the introduction that's needed before I start. You want to go ahead and jump into the slideshow, or want to wait a bit?
No, go for it.
Okay, let's see if the rehearsal paid off. All right. Let's see it. I need to. How can I get this thing? I can move it. There we go. Okay. Today I'll be sharing my journey. Again, I'll be talking a lot about myself, certain specific actions I took and resources that I found helpful. Hopefully you'll be able to put those to use in your journey. And this is specifically about, my journey, which is becoming a professional film and TV actor. There are a lot of people, and I got this from Audrey Moore's podcast, which I'll go into later. There are a lot of people who love to ski or love to swim, but they'd never consider being an Olympic swimmer or skier, which is kind of like being a professional actor is pretty much like being in the Olympics. If your passion lies in local community or professional theater with an occasional film or TV show filmed locally, that's fantastic. It's just not the focus of this workshop. This workshop is focused on taking it a little bit further, but I think there'll be some things that I've experienced that will help regardless of how far you might want to take this thing. And I've got to move the chat again because it's in the way. There we go. My introduction to acting, and last night I was fine tuning this thing. I decided to go ahead and throw a picture of Mom up there on the screen. My mom introduced me to acting, so that's why I threw a picture of her up there. And that's a notice of the first play I was in, Music Man, at West Ark Community College. And a friend of mine who is not an actor, but he was, I think in his late 30s or 40s, he drove a forklift for a living. And he decided to go to night school to become an accountant. And someone said to him that, you'll be 50 before you finish school. And he said, well, I'll be 50 anyway. So he has been an accountant now for years and has never looked back. And it's never too late to achieve your dreams. And I think words are very important. And I don't want to talk about pursuing your dreams. You never call someone up and say, hey, would you like to pursue dinner? And I got that from the first resource I'll mention, Glenn Morshower. He says, pursuing is not having. Having is the game plan all along. Stop pursuing and start claiming your dreams. It's your divine right. Glenn Morshower, if you see him, you will recognize him. He's been in everything you can imagine. And Glenn talks about being in Hollywood and seeing it over and over again. People come and they pursue an acting career. Another word he doesn't like is rejection. He said rejection is a personal judgment. If you're not hired, you're just not hired. It's not a judgment against you. But he said people show up to Hollywood pursuing an acting career and getting rejected, and they last about 3 years. And he's seen it happen over and over again. So I'm not pursuing an acting career. I am claiming an acting career. But that was my introduction. After a Music Man, I was, they didn't have a lot of people to choose from. So I fell in love with everything about it. The people, the energy, the camaraderie, coming together for a common goal. It was all just magical. One of my fondest memories, I don't even think it's done anymore because newspapers have other things to cover. But we used to stay up late on opening night. We would go over to a cast member's house and stay up all night, waiting for the reviews to come out in the newspaper the next day. And, sometimes we were excited about it, sometimes not so much, but it was just a lot of fun. And I enjoyed the people, the energy, everything about it, fell in love with it immediately. Over the next few years, I had the opportunity to appear in several productions at West Ark Community College, all of these in Fort Smith, the Little Theater, the Children's Theater, and of course there's a lot of theaters here in Little Rock. I didn't list them all because I just found out there's actually a casting notice I just came across this morning, which I'll mention later if I can find my phone. Anyway, so I was in several performances from the ages of about 9 to 13, I believe it was 8, 9 to 13. At the age of 13, some things happened that led me away from my dream of becoming an actor. My father passed away, and may have triggered my decision to follow other paths. However, several bad decisions followed closely and continued for many years. I won't go into details about that. But the only positive thing I did during this time was serving in the Marine Corps from 1979 to 1982. I didn't fully embrace the discipline and some of the other traits they taught at that time, but I believe many have come back to serve me well in later years. Also, you had mentioned, Scarlett, that we were going to take questions as we go. And also, I also wanted to stop because we talked beforehand about a couple of polls that I wanted to run just to kind of see who were the audiences here. So if you wouldn't mind posting those questions. I don't know how it will affect, if it will affect what I do, but I would like to find out a little bit about who all is attending today. And I apologize in advance if I'm telling you stuff you already know. How long do you let that run? About 30 seconds or so?
Sorry, I'm muted. It's got 30 seconds left.
Okay.
5 of 9. Oh, 6 of 9. You guys go.
Yeah.
Oh,
If we get 100%, what happens?
I don't know. I've never done this.
Okay, so with almost everybody responding, 63% none, and 38% have done some acting. And looks like the professions are a lot of professional administrative. My background was in sales. So that's just kind of interesting. Just I'm not keeping this information. I just thought it would be something interesting to know. You'll see later on. Are we going to share those results? Stop sharing.
Oh yeah, I shared.
Okay, I can just minimize it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And there's a couple of there's one specific person I mentioned their profession later on. Anyway. So things took me away from acting. At the age of 29, a series of self-imposed crises that I could not postpone or evade led me to a turning point. Again, no details need to be gone into on that. Almost 10 years later, having lived with a clear head on my shoulders, I started remembering the joy acting used to bring and the dreams I once had of becoming an actor. But that took a long time. I was able to join the roster at the Agency Incorporated here in Little Rock. That's the local agency here, and did a few commercials, some print photography, even booked a speaking role in a film called Chasing the Dragon. The line was, "Water's back on." That was it. And the film, I've never seen the film. I can't find it anywhere. I did see a review of the film on IMDb. They said this film was harder to watch than it was to find. But anyway, that earned me eligibility in the SAG-AFTRA union. If you're directed to speak words in a SAG-AFTRA feature film, then you are eligible for membership. I didn't join for many years, which I may go into later on. But during that time, there were several years where I was what I refer to as a MAW, which is a model, actor, whatever, you know, just kind of not taking it serious, just showing up when opportunities arose, and I guess hoping I would do well. That is about it. So the agency brought in a casting director. This is one of the pivotal points here. They brought in a casting director from New Orleans to do a workshop, and he posted several scenes to choose from. I picked the worst one possible. It was actually a lewd scene, which even though he posted it, I shouldn't have picked it, but that didn't have anything to do with it. I performed it horribly. I did a really, really bad job. And I told Sarah Tackett, who was running the agency at the time, how badly I thought I had performed. And she said, I just didn't have the experience that the other actors had, so I couldn't expect to do any better. And if you know some of the local actors, a few of them were Natalie Canada, Candace Hinkle, Paige Reynolds. I mean, these are very experienced and well-trained actors. Tom Kagi was there. And I've had a chance to apologize to most of them since that time, and had the opportunity to work with all of them as well. So I'm real thankful that she told me the truth, you know, rather than just patting me on the back and saying, no, honey, you did fine. She just told me that I didn't have the experience. And so I took her at her word, and she was exactly right. So I set out to gain as much experience as possible. And I started doing that at a local theater. I began auditioning for local theater. And I hesitate to even try to mention them all, because I just saw a new one this morning, the Actors Playhouse. I don't have my phone handy, but there's a casting call right now. There's this afternoon, they're casting a play. But there's the Studio Theater, the Weekend Theater, Red Curtain Theater in Conway, Argenta Community Theater. You know, there's Arkansas Repertory Theater. There are lots of opportunities on stage. So I began auditioning for local theater to get more comfortable with the audition process, because I used to not like auditioning. It really made me nervous. I didn't enjoy it at all. So I wanted to get some experience. And to my surprise, I started getting cast in these shows. Heck, I was even asked to be in a couple I hadn't auditioned for. They had seen me audition for other shows, or had seen me in other shows, and approached me to be in their shows. So, so I was able to experience the excitement and of becoming a member of a company of actors, and again, coming together for that common goal of creating something. And I was certain then that I wanted to pursue it. I wanted to go on with it. Go further with it. And after being in several shows, I decided to look at doing it professionally. And what prompted that was there were two critical things that happened. The first was joining the company of Arkansas Shakespeare Theater. Arkansas Shakespeare Theater at the time, it's changed a little bit, but I think it is still an equity production. And Actors Equity Association is the labor union representing those who work in live theatrical performance. So Arkansas Shakespeare Theater, working with professional actors from all over the country, they used to cast in either Chicago or New York or both. And they would bring in a handful of very experienced professional actors, many of them professors of drama at universities around the country. Um, and that was an incredible experience. Their dedication, professionalism, willingness to share, all of that was something I'll never forget. And it was the first time I'd worked on a professional equity production. And the difference between a community theater production, a professional production, was profound. And this is not to knock those productions, because they are what they are. There's no pay involved. It's strictly voluntary. It's people who love performing arts, and I'm so thankful that Little Rock is blessed with so many of them. But in this equity production, every member of the company was completely dedicated to the production. I don't think anybody missed a single rehearsal. It was just something that you just did not do. And also the stage manager, they ruled the roost with an iron fist. They made sure the actors were treated with respect and that union rules were followed to the letter. They would literally interrupt the director if it was time for a break, and they would make the director stop whatever they were doing and send us on break. So it was just a different level to me of dedication. And again, particularly the equity actors, there were some cast members who were members of equity, and of course they got a pretty decent check for that. So it was just professional, and really opened my eyes to what was possible. Then I decided to started doing some short films, and I decided that I liked film better. I think Bill Murray says it best. Movie acting suits me because I only need to be good for 90 seconds at a time. And I've known some theater actors who were able to keep it fresh and live and real and different every single night, day in and day out. And that's a lot of work, and my hat's off to those folks, because it's amazing to watch them. I kind of like the lack of rehearsal in film and TV. You don't get a lot of rehearsal time. And I kind of think it seems more spontaneous and realistic that way. So it's just my preference. Also, being in a stage play is a huge commitment of time. You're talking 2 or 3 months, and night after night of rehearsal, and then night after night of performing. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication. So I decided to start looking at film. There are student films right here. Someone was asking about how to do that, how to be in film and TV here in Little Rock. Well, I found that picture. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. There are a lot of opportunities here to get started. Student films are produced at University of Central Arkansas, University of Arkansas Little Rock, John Brown University, if you don't mind traveling a little bit. They have film departments. The 48-hour film project occurs annually, and you don't have to have any experience for that. You can enter a team and make your own film. If you're not familiar with the 48-hour film project, it's a lot of fun. You show up on the night it opens, and they give you a package, and they tell you the genre of film that you're doing. They give you one character name that you have to use. They give you one line of dialogue you have to use. And then you have to write, film, and edit, basically produce a film within 48 hours. So, a lot of times the quality is not as good as it might be if someone had 2 months to make a film, but it's a lot of fun, and you won't sleep for 48 hours. But anyway, it's great way to get the experience. There are also independent filmmakers that are frequently looking for local cast and crew. You can find these on Facebook, Instagram, a little bit, not quite as much, but there are several Facebook groups, and I didn't list them all. But if you just search acting Little Rock, I don't know, I could maybe come up with a list. Real Arkansas is one of them, REEL, Real Arkansas. A lot of casting notices are posted on there. But it's a great way to get some experience on set, and also some footage reel. So I'm going to be talking about this a lot, a demo reel. And I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Yeah, foul language warning. This demo reel does have a little bit of foul language in it. So if there are some little ears listening, I wanted to give you fair warning. But I was going to go ahead and play my demo reel for you. Wait a minute. I think I got ahead of myself. Just a moment. Nope. There we go.
The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness, men who suppress the truth by their wickedness.
You can run on for a long time. Similarly, God, but you just.
Court has no standard for determining intrinsic value.
Your Honor, St. James has had a positive impact.
University concedes the plaintiff is not without merit, but we question the relevancy to this case. I don't know how bright you are, but I imagine you know why I'm here. I'm only going to say this once. You are not to see my daughter.
I've been down on bended knee, talking to the man from Galilee. He called my name and my heart stood still. When he said, John, go do my will.
My life is in that car. All the memories I have left. Everything. Fuck your reservation.
Bible.
People got a certain way of doing things around here. The boy should have known his place.
No one's hands are clean. Oh, let me get Pat. How do I go? There it is. Lindsay, you ought to recognize one of those. Lindsay was in what was that one called? Anyway, Lindsay, we didn't get to work together, but she was in the film. She played my dead wife. So anyway, those type of projects are all over, happening all the time, and they're usually unpaid. They often involve long hours, and frankly, it's hit and miss regarding the quality of the film. But usually there's at least a clip or two you can pull out for a reel. And they're fantastic opportunities to get comfortable on a film set, learn some of the language, how things work. It's a great way to meet and network with the local film community. And you never know, when one of those students might become a professional director and remember someone who helped them out with their student film. I will say there are also the graduate students. Oftentimes their films are a little bit better. They have a little bit more time, a little bit more experience, and maybe even a budget occasionally, which is a rare thing for some of these films. But anyway, it's a great opportunity to get started. And again, if that's all you want to do, that's fine too. There's plenty of opportunity to do that and keep you busy 2 or 3 times a year at least. So like I did in theater, I decided to go from a hobby to a vocation in film. And in particular, when I was casting God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness, that experience, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that was the type of projects I wanted to work on. To work with actors with that type of experience. Tatum O'Neal, the youngest actor to ever win an Academy Award. John Corbett from Northern Exposure, Ted McGinley, who was in Love Boat, Married with Children, etc. Just sitting around and listening to those people talk. I remember one time John Corbett was talking about working at a catering company, as his survival job when he was coming up. And they talked about working at Henry Winkler's birthday party. And Ted McGinley said, yeah, I was at that party. So it was cool. But what was even more so than that was watching them perform. There was one scene at a conference table and Tatum O'Neal and Ted McGinley were talking to one another. And of course, the way they do these shots, if you notice in films, sometimes the camera will be on one actor, some on the other. They call it over the shoulder. And so after they were through with Ted McGinley's shot, when the camera was on him, they were over the shoulder looking at Tatum O'Neal. And Ted McGinley delivered every bit as much of an intense performance when the camera wasn't even on him. And afterwards, I remember Tatum O'Neal saying, thank you so much for that, Ted. And he said, oh, absolutely, because you got to, you have to, you might have heard the term actors being generous, and I got to see generous actors, and they were giving of themselves to help the other people give the best performance possible. So it not only helped me to realize it was possible to do things like that here, but it also galvanized my resolve to do whatever it would take to make it happen. Building a career in film and TV, my first beginning was a class offered at the Arkansas Repertory Theater, The Business of Show, taught by a gentleman by the name of Ethan Paulini. You may want to write that down, Ethan Paulini, Paulini. He still offers career coaching. Some of his many suggestions were getting a website, getting vanity URLs on all social media platforms, Twitter.com/Barry Clifton, YouTube.com/Barry Clifton, Vimeo.com/Barry Clifton. He even said, MySpace/Barry Clifton. Who knows when it will come back? You never know what social media platform is going to be popular next. And I've had much more career coaching since then. And I learned, again, something I'll be talking about a lot: my package, my headshots, my resume, my demo reel. Those all have to match up nicely to help casting directors quickly know where they can put me. And I'll go into that more later. In looking for other guidance, I came across on Facebook, Bonnie Gillespie. She's the author of a book called Self-Management for Actors. The Facebook group is temporarily paused. There's just got to be too many people. I think you can still view things on there, but I don't think you can post on there anymore. But anyway, there's still some information on there. And of course, the book, I've never read the book, frankly, but I know many people have found it helpful. And that they have a spinoff group called Ninja Self-Tape Challenge. So I think you have to be a member of the one group to join the other. I don't remember exactly, but that Ninja Self-Tape Challenge was neat. And I began seeing how much hard work and dedication were needed to essentially build a brand and become a viable option to producers. Glenn Morshower, he talks about, you have to cast yourself. He said, you have to ask yourself, why should they cast me in this film? And he said, that's a legitimate question for any employer to ask a potential employee. Why should we hire you? So you have to be able to answer that question. There's a lot of work involved. As with any other discipline, self-taping is a big thing now. All the auditions are done by self-tape, or I say all, most of them are done by self-tapes now. And with any other discipline, practice makes better. I don't say practice makes perfect, because perfect is unachievable. And it's also subjective. It may be the perfect audition for one casting director, but the producers don't like it, or the producer likes it, but the director hates it. So you just have to do the best you can. So on that Ninja Self-Tape Challenge, Bonnie had they offered they presented a 30-day self-tape challenge, which I committed to do, even though I was scared to death to do so. And I just realized, Scarlett, that I'm not pausing for questions. Are there any questions that I should maybe stop and answer at this point?
I don't have any in the chat so far. You're
Okay,
good.
good deal. So I committed to do this 30-day self-tape challenge, even though I was scared to death to do it. One of my favorite sayings is, if you're scared, do it scared. So I signed up to do this, and they provided prompts or suggestions on what to tape each day, like a co-star scene, a guest star scene. And if you don't know the difference, a co-star may have one or two lines in a show. And frankly, that's all I've had is co-stars. A guest star is like, if you watch NCIS or one of the main shows, there's usually one particular character, like it's about a banker who is corrupt, and that banker is going to be featured throughout the thing. That's called a guest star, much bigger role, but better pay too. But they would say, tape a co-star scene, tape a guest star scene, tape a scene in low light, do one with an accent, etc. So they gave different prompts. So for 30 days, I did these self-tapes. I committed to doing it, and I did it. And unknown to me, completely unknown to me at the time I started that, exactly 31 days after I started the challenge, there was a rare open casting call, cattle call in Little Rock for the film God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness. And I had been in front of a camera every day for 30 days and was in better shape as a film actor than ever before in my life. It didn't matter that it was my camera, you know, because I had been, and the way that self-tape challenge works, you post it and then people will critique, not so much the acting, because again, that's so subjective, but they would give tips on lighting, the glare from the glasses, you know, all sorts of technical tips. And my background has changed significantly. Right now, I use seamless paper. I love the seamless paper background. But anyway, I learned a lot of the technical stuff. So I show up for that cattle call, and I was confident, practiced, comfortable when I went into the room with the casting director. I got a call back a few days later and read with another casting director and the director of the film, John Gunn. And a few days later, I received an offer to play the role of Robert Andrews in that film. There are many other self-tape challenges. You'll hear me talk about Audrey Moore. She has a wonderful podcast called Audrey Helps Actors. And every year she does a self-tape May, where actors are challenged to make 16 self-tapes in the month of May.
Hey, Barry, before we move on, because it sounds like you're, you talked a lot about this taping, and I was wondering, did you have any writing experience? We had a question about whether you were writing your scripts at all, especially
No.
during this challenge.
I was not. There are a lot of places to find scripts online. One thing people do, they'll transcribe a show. You know, they'll get a scene on YouTube or something and turn on closed caption and just write down the dialogue. And I'll go into audition coaching later on, but I have had audition coaching. And the thing about doing that is you lose the stage directions. And stage directions, there's a lot of information in stage directions that let you know things about the character, things about the situation, the given circumstances, if you will. So I would suggest not transcribing. And a lot of times too, if you search the internet for scripts, you won't find actual scripts. You'll find someone who's transcribed just the dialogue. But if you can find a script, and they're available, you can find them online. It's much better to have those up. And again, if you're a member of Actors Access, which I'll go into later on, you can download sides. They call them sides, or just small scripts for a particular role. But when I did Bonnie's 30-day challenge, I don't think I knew a lot of that. So I was transcribing some scripts and stuff, but I didn't write any of my own. I've thought about, for self-tape May, I've actually toyed with writing a couple of scripts for that, but I'm going to be traveling, so I'm not going to be doing it this year. But that's absolutely acceptable for a self-tape challenge. I would caution you on doing that as a demo reel, unless you were really confident that it was a well-written script, professionally recorded and directed. I would be a little bit cautious about that. Any other questions? I'm kind of zooming through this, aren't
You're doing fine.
I? So anyway, there are a lot of self-tapes, and I decided, again, another language warning. I decided to go ahead and show a couple of successful self-tapes that I've done that ended up with me booking the role.
Sorry, Pam. Oh, I know.
I'm a pillar of the community.
She's a pillar of the community.
Thanks, Chair. Great guy. We're out of cherry. Chair.
Oh. Sorry, Pam.
Thanks.
Hey, Pam, you heard? Betsy Maria's husband got arrested.
No way.
News just said so. He goes to my sister's church. Can you believe that? You never know what's going on inside other people's houses. The wolves you released ain't even the ones that used to be here. You brought them in from fucking Canada.
Genetically speaking, they are the same species, and we thought out Wilson region with no livestock depredation.
You know why? Because there ain't no livestock in the forest of Alberta. But by God, there's depredation now.
We do not have a single confirmed livestock killed by wolves.
They're attacking our cattle every night. Just ask around. Jesus Christ. The ones that used to be here. You brought them in from fucking Canada.
Technically speaking, they are the same species. And we sought out wolves from regions with no livestock depredation.
You know why? Because there ain't no livestock in the forest of Alberta.
We do not have a single confirmed livestock.
There we go. One thing I wanted to mention about the audition for Yellowstone, the lady that you heard reading with me is one of my audition coaches. And the last line in the sides were the wolf scientist saying, we don't have any evidence of a single attack. And that was the end of the audition. But what she suggested was that, and again, not having seen the clip, it's obvious now, but she said there are probably going to be a whole bunch of extras behind you that are going to be the crowd. And you may be the only actor on set, and they may need you as an actor to lead this crowd, because it did say the stage direction, we stormed the podium. So she suggested that I add that last bit. And I can't help but think that that was part of what helped me land that role. So anyway, that's what it looks like, you know, and I tell you what, I've got a whole bunch more self-tapes that didn't end up in booking. But you know, I've learned now, and I don't know if I go into this later on or not, but I think I do. I've learned that you know, it's not so much getting the role. If I'm going to get satisfaction only from booking a role, there's going to be a whole lot of disappointment. So I have to learn to get satisfaction from the performance. You know, it's an opportunity to perform, to bring whatever I bring to the scene, to make it as truthful as possible, as real as possible. And that's exciting to me, you know, to create something from nothing. Oftentimes the auditions I get can be like in Chasing the Dragon, you know, just say, what was the audition I had the other day was, can I help you? No, we're out of that. Can I help you with something else? That was the whole audition, you know, and those are fine. I'm going to get a lot more of those probably than I will the guest star auditions, but then I'll get sometimes a 8 or 9 page really meaty audition. And those of course are a lot more fun. But at this stage of my career, I've got to be willing to do it all, you know. Self-management, you get 90% of the money, you do 90% of the work. You know, the agents get 10% of the money. A lot of people think that agents need to, you know, you just sit back and kick back and let them find you gigs. Well, they only get 10% of the money. So I was told that you do 90% of the work. But an agent and a manager, they're really essential in building a lasting career. Of course, I didn't have one to begin with. But I began learning about my type or my casting, the roles I'm best suited for. Not how I see myself, but how casting directors would see me. And I balked at that. I was really against that initially, thinking I could do it all. You know, I could be anything you want me to be. I didn't want to be pigeonholed or typecast. But I've since learned that having a concise and clear casting to let casting directors know exactly where to use you is really important. That's not to say you can't change that or expand it in the future, but it's more of a way in, or as Audrey Moore says, it's your ticket to the show. if there's a specific talent you have or specific look you have or something that is your ticket to the show. I know there are a lot of comedic actors. Matter of fact, I was in a film with Lawrence. What is his name? He was in a film called Mindcage, and he's been a comedic actor up till now. That was his first dramatic role. So a lot of times there'll be like a comedic actor that's in a bunch of funny films. Then, you'll see them branch out and do drama or vice versa. So it's something that's fluid, but first you have to get in the door. And I was taught to have the best possible package. Again, I'm going to mention this several times. My headshots should match my resume, which match my demo reel. And that takes time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work. But all three of those elements, professionally produced if possible, are essential in my opinion. Actors Access is the site most used for roles in the Southeast and South Central regions. There are some other casting sites, but Actors Access is by far the biggest. An account on that site is a must-have. You have to have an Actors Access account to act professionally. There are free accounts available. If you do have a free account, you pay every time you download sides. You pay every time you upload an audition. A paid subscription is $68 for a full year or $10 a month. A paid subscription allows you to download sides for free. So again, some sides are protected with codes and so forth, but there are some that you can download for self-tape practice. Now, the thing about that is you can't ever put those on social media. If it's something that has not been produced or aired yet, those very much need to be kept private.
So we have a question about headshots. Should headshots be someone smiling, straight face, smirking, or multiple headshots? Like how do you handle those?
Well, I'll go into that a little bit more later on, but it depends on what your casting is. Oftentimes it's best to have usually, generally speaking, a commercial headshot, and it's not like TV commercials. It's just a commercial headshot. You're kind of smiling, happy. A dramatic or theatrical headshot is more serious. But it depends. If you consider yourself a comedic actor, more importantly, if the people you work with, your career coaches, your stylists, your audition coaches, people like that, and how they see you, whatever your casting is determined to be, can determine those headshots. And let me back up. No, I'll go into that later. I'll go into it later. So that it just depends. But well, I'll go into that a little bit later on about how to determine what photographs, what shots you might need to best represent you as an actor. But they should be professionally produced. I see a lot of people doing their own headshots, and unless you're trained to do that, I would, and even if you are, an outside eye is vital. So I think I'll answer that question later, come back to it. Actors Access, if you have an agent, your agent will submit you to roles that fit your type through that platform. If you don't have an agent, you can self-submit as well. You can every day you can go and look at breakdowns, they call them. You can look at breakdowns by region, and oftentimes they'll want you to be local hire to Atlanta or whatever. And I'm not going to get into the whole local hire controversy right now. But there are also, I think, the film Mindcage Hellfire that shot here. I believe I saw that. I may have self-submitted for that. But there are, you can self-submit, but if you don't have a demo reel and you don't have professional headshots, chances are they're not even going to consider your submission. They're not even going to look at it because they don't have anything to go on.
Tom has a question. So if Tom would like to go ahead and ask.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to put my 2 cents in here, and just a really stiff admonishment that I've known about for a long time. If you're going to submit or post anything online, don't ever post an audition that you did. Let's say you auditioned for a commercial or a film or whatever, and you've got it in your self-tape library. Don't do that. the producers of that film or that commercial will be very upset if you expose their material before they want it exposed.
Mhm.
And you'll go on that blacklist.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why, I had I did after the shows aired, well after they aired, actually, I did post those audition versus performance performance videos. But yeah, I've heard the stories about people getting blackballed, and there is a blacklist, the people that they will not cast. They don't talk about it, but it exists. And even if it's something like I was talking about, if you download sites from Actors Access, and it's not even something you're auditioning for, same thing. If you put that material out there, that is bad mojo. Most of the times, or often there'll be non-disclosure agreements that come with the sides. But it's if nothing else, professional courtesy not to do that. That's someone else's artistic work, and it needs to be protected. So thank you for that, Tom. And I believe haven't I seen you in the Dallas-Fort Worth SAG-AFTRA meetings?
No, sir. I'm in fabulous Harrington Park, New Jersey.
Okay, I've seen you somewhere. Maybe we're taking a class together or something.
Oh,
Anyway, yeah.
We did a seminar about a year ago, I think.
Cool. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
So you can self-submit, but you've got to have that package. Other platforms, backstage.com. I've not had much luck with that. Casting Networks, which is really big on the coast. Also, as I mentioned before, Facebook and other social media platforms. A lot of times, again, there are sometimes a lot of background roles you'll see, which there's nothing wrong with that too. I used to do a lot of background, just to get started, again, get familiar with being on set. But social media is also a good way to kind of get started. In Central Arkansas, talent reps are very limited. The Agency Incorporated and Sculpt Agency are the only two that I know of. Sculpt deals mostly with modeling rather than actors. And in Northwest Arkansas, Actors Casting Agency is the only one that I know of. There is a new lady up in Missouri who is starting to reach out down here in Southern Arkansas. And thankfully, I know some people in Missouri. I was able to vet her and find out she's legitimate, because you also got to be careful, particularly on social media. There are some scam artists out there that will, say they'll put you in a movie if you take their $700 class or whatever. Be no pay to play. That's something, acting is such a dream for people, and I just hate people that will prey on someone's dreams. And it really aggravates me. And there's a ton of stuff out there. That's why I was so glad. And I forgot at the beginning to thank Scarlett and Lindsay and Arkansas Arts Council for inviting me to do this. And I really appreciate you offering it as a free class, because anyone that charges for a class, I would feel somewhat guilty about teaching it, because there are professionals who have been doing this a lot longer than I have, who do a really good job of it. But anyway, thank you for allowing me to do this. People were so generous with me and helping me, and still are helping me as I move on. And so I certainly want to. There's a quote, I forget who initially said it, but the lift as you climb. I love that quote. So talent agencies, again, you might be doing self-submitting for a while. I was fortunate to have been signed with the agency years ago. I'm still grateful they're on the team. I didn't get my first out-of-state agent, Gene Winger with Treasure Coast Talent, until I had a project with National Theatrical Release, God's Not Dead 3. So the conundrum is you can't get a rep without credits, and you can't get credits without a rep. Now you can get credit. I did get credits without a rep. There were student films and such, and actually the God's Not Dead, I booked that without an agent because I had left the agency for a period of time, thinking the grass was greener on the other side. So you can book roles without an agent. It's just a lot harder. But you can get credits without a rep, but generally speaking, it's hard. I'm also grateful to have received a referral for both my LA agent and my New Orleans agent. And again, this is from Audrey Moore's podcast, which I'll give you that information later on. It's all right to ask a friend to refer you to their agent. If they are a friend and you've known them for a while, friends like to help friends. but I would strongly suggest you have something worth referring. You know, you need to have some type of credits, and theatrical credits really don't count for much, if anything. People in film and TV don't care that you were the lead in Streetcar Named Desire. They don't really care. That's what I've been told. But anyway, some type of credits, professional headshots, demo reel, and an actor's access account are the bare minimums for an agent to even consider you. If they don't have a package to look at, there's really nothing for them to go on, you know. There is another, I've recently added a manager to my team, Andrea Courtney with Established Artists. I used a service, again, if you're a member of Actors Access, they offer a service called Talent Link. And I forget what it was. I think it was only like $35 or something. And Talent Link is designed to give actors seeking representation the opportunity to reach a wide audience and to provide agents and managers a way to find new talent. And you can tell them if you're looking for agent, manager, or both. As an actor, Talent Link is the most efficient means to get your professional Actors Access profile in front of talent representatives. It's posted directly to agents and managers, but only in New York and LA. That's the only place it goes. Your Talent Link will be active for 2 weeks. And as a side note, when I put that out there, I thought, you know, I had a couple of decent credits, you know, that had been seen nationwide. So I thought maybe I was surprised. I actually had 5 different managers reach out to me, and was thrilled to pick up the one I did. And also, as far as agents, I was thinking it would behoove me to have an agent in Oklahoma, a local agent that local casting directors knew, an agent in Texas, an agent in Atlanta, this, that, and the other. And now that I have a manager, I can kind of bounce things off of her. And she cautioned me about having too many reps. She said sometimes that can be a little off-putting. And I did find out also that my Los Angeles agent, she sees the casting notices for the Southeast and South Central region, and she has submitted me for these roles. Now, the thing about that is she not only submits me to the local casting directors, but she also submits me to the LA casting, which is where the bigger roles are going to be. The guest stars and so forth are most likely going to be cast out of LA. So I'm not looking for any other agents at this time. I've got a great, that's what I wanted to back up about. I remember seeing Leonardo DiCaprio when he won his Academy Award for The Revenant. The first thing he said was, "I would like to thank my team." And I remember thinking, golly, I hope I get there someday where I have a team, you know. And finally, slowly, I realized you don't get there without a team, you know. And it's still seen to me, and to me, it sounds a little arrogant to talk about my team, but it's not. But I have a team, you know. I have my agents, my manager. I have a couple of audition coaches. I have, and I'll get into this later, I have a stylist. I've had dialect coaching. I just recently added a new member to my team, Carol Jones, with American Acres. I'm taking horse riding lessons. She's part of the team, you know, and it takes that, you know. And I was talking to Carol about that yesterday, and she said she has her team too. You know, she's won multiple Western Pleasure World Championships. She wouldn't have done that without a team. So you can start assembling the team right now, wherever you are. And it's a wonderful thing to have other folks, you know, trying to help you achieve your goals. And that's something else I don't really think I went into, but as far as having an agent, you know, I have to bring value to that agency. If I don't book a gig, they don't get paid, you know. So if I have nothing to offer, then I'm just taking up space and wasting their time. So I've got to be castable, or they've got to think I'm castable anyway. So that's why it's so important that I have something to show them so they can see whether they think I can make them any money. I mean, they're not in this just because they like people. Oftentimes I've found that agents and casting directors really do like actors, but that's not why they do this. They do this to make a living. Okay, moving forward, extroverting your talent. Again, that's a quote from Audrey Moore. as I began to get some credits, the road gets rougher, not smoother. You think about one myth that I have pretty much come to disbelieve is the breakout role. I used to think that, you go along and then all of a sudden you get this role and you've made it. And that's kind of the dream that they sell, but that's rare. So anyways, I began to get a couple of credits. Now I'm being submitted for roles that are often being offered to named actors, or at least actors with many more credits to their name and probably many more connections. That's the one bad thing about, one of the bad things about coming into acting later in life. Most actors my age, if they've been doing it for their whole life, they have a ton of credits, and they have relationships and connections. I don't want to put any negative connotation with that at all. Connections are not a bad thing. I don't mean to criticize anyone who has them or uses them. Who was it just won the Oscar? Anyway, her mom and dad were both actors. But it simply means that they have worked with people before and they've established a level of trust. It's important that casting directors and producers and everybody, they're investing a lot of money. And so those connections and knowing they can trust you with their productions is very important. So with all that in mind, it's important to continue developing both my relationships and my craft. There are a multitude of options available locally and online. I mentioned casting director workshops. There's I call it a clearinghouse for casting director workshops. The one that I use is called One-on-One NYC. And they host casting director workshops. And when I was actively taking those workshops, I would find casting directors that were either in the South Central or Southeast regions, or had cast projects in those regions. I didn't think it would do me a lot of good to go in front of a casting director that just casts Los Angeles sitcoms. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I targeted that very specifically. Also, I've had 2 casting directors tell me that my package was crystal clear and that how much they appreciated that. So not only was I advised that by career coaching, it's been verified by casting directors, who is after all, they're our customers, So when you're determining which casting directors you may want to do workshops with, IMDb, probably most of you are familiar with IMDb. An IMDb Pro account is a great help when researching casting directors. You just get a lot more information with the IMDb Pro account. And I forget how much it is. I don't know if I wrote that down or not. I don't think I did. It's not terribly expensive, but that's a great help when researching casting directors. Also, when I get an audition, I want to research what projects they've done in the past, who else is associated with the project, who the companies are, maybe what their budget is. I got an audition recently, and I found out the film has been around for a long, long time. I don't think I'm talking too much out of school when I say that. I hate to say The Rock. What's his name? Anyway, The Rock. The Rock was going to play a college student.
Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne Johnson, thank you. Ding, ding, ding. So Dwayne Johnson was associated with the project as a college student at one time. So that tells you how long the project's been around, and it's still not been made. By the way, someone asked me one time, once you submit an audition, how long before you hear back? And I heard the average is about 2 weeks to 4 years. Because sometimes these projects, this one hit some financial bumps and I don't know what all, but it takes a long time to make a movie. So during a career coaching session, some of the suggestions I got was to improve my audition technique. She didn't say you don't know how to act, but she just said, your audition technique. Auditions are really, they're not always performed as a scene will be performed on the day. Sometimes my coach is real big about specificity. And sometimes you don't have to be as specific on the day. There's just when you're actually filming a scene, like when I filmed that scene in Yellowstone, there were literally 50 sure enough ranchers behind me. You know, that changes everything. That changes the dynamic of everything. And I had to kind of bring those 50 people with me to the audition somehow, try to bring them into the room, you know. But anyway, so it was suggested that I take some audition training. The course that I took it's called Book the Room, Book the Role. That's a one-on-one coaching intensive taught by Courtney Cunningham. Courtney Cunningham is a working actor. I like getting classes from working actors. There are some professional coaches, and that's all they do is coach, and they are fantastic. I've read, you know, lots of named actors use those people. I prefer working with actors who are in the trenches every day. They tend to be more up to date with current trends. Like used to, it was you would almost never wear still maybe not a costume, but now then it's kind of acceptable to wear something that hints at the period you're auditioning for. Or if you're a doctor, I mean, I've got a lab coat now that I'll wear if I'm auditioning for a nurse or a doctor. So it's okay now to do that, whereas used to it wasn't. And there's a million things like that. So Courtney Cunningham's class was great. It was one-on-one. You know, we met first, and she determined what I wanted to get from the class and things like that. And then we went into the class. It was a goal-oriented coaching series that targeted my specific needs, strengths, and weaknesses with highly specified attention to detail. And you just can't get that in a large class situation. Now, the large classes are much more economic. The one-on-one classes are kind of expensive. But in my opinion, it was well worth it. But there are a lot of opportunities available. Glenn Morshower, I mentioned him. He has a class, and I was in a workshop with him, and he said, I tried to find the website to his class. I couldn't find it, but he said anyone is welcome to audit the class. But I was unable to find that. But anyway, Glenn Morshower has a class. There are tons of them available, but I would caution you. A friend of mine and our colleague in New York said that there are a lot of people in New York who book one or two roles, and all of a sudden they become an expert and start charging for classes. And that's, again, why I'm glad this was for free. I don't want to set myself up as a professional teacher just because I got a couple of credits, you know, because I don't have that much experience. But there are tons of available options. I would suggest you find someone you can relate to, but also someone who will be straight with you, you know, someone who won't just pat you on the back and tell you you're doing great, you know, someone that that maybe you could take criticism from, constructive criticism from. And again, I suggest working with working actors, but that's up to you. Now then, going back to the question about headshots during additional career coaching. And I'll tell you that career coaching, I don't want to mention her name. She asked me kind of not to mention her as doing that because she's over a year out now on booking these. So she's just incredibly busy. But I want to just tell you briefly what she had me do, because this was a lot of work. She found out, you know, where my market was, and she had me research the surrounding markets, Dallas, New Orleans, Atlanta. I think I looked at Nashville, Memphis, St. Louis, and then look at shows that are filmed in those areas, and then look at characters in those shows that I might be a good fit for. Then I was told to find sides from those shows, perform scenes from those shows before coaching and after coaching. And then I was to put together that reel, my audition before coaching, my audition after coaching, and the actual performance that ended up making it on TV. And so I put all that together before I went back for a second session. So it was a ton of work, a lot of work, but it was so helpful in narrowing down my casting. So once we kind of had that down, it was suggested that I use a stylist for my headshots. In the past, you know, I had a few professional headshots, and I would just show up at the photographer. I'd grab a handful of clothes I thought I looked good in, you know, and just show up and leave everything to the photographer. You know, take some pictures. But and I copied this from her site. I used Buckley Sampson has a company called Image by Buckley. And she says that not only must you know the lines, hit the mark, and connect to the role, but you must also present an image that showcases your strengths. Understanding the intricate dynamics of the casting industry matters now more than ever in your highly competitive career. And so my headshots are very intentional, very specific. I recently took a couple of others that haven't quite made it on the page yet, but my LA agent and my manager wanted me to get a couple of other looks. But those were very specific, and evidently they were good, you know, because like I said, I've had a couple of casting directors say it's very clear where they can use me. The next resource I want to mention, because it was a big one for me, is weaudition.com. I'm not a paid spokesperson for them. I don't get anything from them, but it's a great website. Weaudition.com is a place where actors read for other actors when they have auditions, because, you know, if you have a lot of auditions, you get tired of asking a family member or a handful of friends to come over and help you. You know, they're going to get tired of it. So We Audition was started by two actors before the pandemic. Well, before the pandemic, they started this. And so it's a great resource to find readers. Also, I'm a reader on there, and I read for a lot of other actors, and it's a good way to make some income. And it was really a game changer for me, either directly or indirectly. I met my career coach, I met my audition coaches, I met my stylist through this platform. As an actor, for instance, I've recently had an audition for a role with a Scottish accent. Within 24 hours, I was able to get dialect coaching. I'm friends with a British expatriate who lives in Australia, and he's Scottish. I was able to get dialect coaching from him. I was able to connect with my audition coach, get audition coaching, and I was able to book an Irish actress to read with me for the scene to add some authenticity to it. I haven't heard from production yet, but you know, film takes a little bit longer to cast than TV. TV, it's amazing how quick that turnaround time is. But I've still got hope for that film audition. Whether I book it or not, I know I did 3 different takes. I know it was a good audition worthy of booking the role. Now, whether it goes to a named actor, because it was some pretty big people in the film, or not, who knows? But to be able to have those resources at your fingertips is just amazing. And as a reader on the site, I've met some amazing people, established friendships around the globe. There's one actor in New Zealand that I get on FaceTime with about once a week and talk. I've read with actors in Israel, Australia, Great Britain, all over the place. I'm also able to stay on top of current castings. You know, you can find out, like I know right now, a lot of Westerns are being made. I think people are following Taylor Sheridan's footsteps, understandably so. So I find out current trends, or I can stay on top of current trends in casting. I get to practice my cold reading skills, because the actor, if you're asked to read for another actor, they'll upload their sides on the screen there. And again, those need to be treated as Tom mentioned before, be very protective of those. And you'll read the other characters in the scene, and so you need to be able to be a pretty good cold reader and pick up the tone and the sense of the scene really quickly. So you get to practice cold reading skills, scene analysis. You know, you have to figure out. And you don't have to. A lot of times the actors will tell you exactly what they want. Sometimes they may not know. It depends on their level of experience. But sometimes you need to know, like, just an example off the top of my head, if there is a mob boss in a scene, and he's truly the boss of the group or whatever, or in a corporate setting, oftentimes they won't be loud, you know, because they have the power. The person with the power doesn't have to be loud. They have the power. You know, so you can, you know, there's different things you can learn, and the other actor may tell you, no, that's not how I want it, and that's fine. You're there for them when you're a reader. But I'm able to practice all those skills, and I do that every day for hours a day. What it is, you stay logged in And you don't have to, I mean, if you do it, you turn your beacon on, they call it, which means you're available to read for other actors. And actually there are at least 4 actors here in Little Rock now that are on that site. I'm glad to see. I even received 2 or 3 unsolicited agent referrals. Now, I've never asked an actor on here to refer me to an agent, but I've had people tell me that they would be happy to refer me. None of them have worked out, but I mean, that's a tremendously valuable thing. And I'm really grateful for it. Something else that's recently been brought to my attention was that I've had the opportunity to watch over 2,000 auditions on that site. I'd never thought about it, but there's one reader I go to quite often. He's a very experienced actor, lives in Mexico City. And he said, you know, because you've seen over 2,000 auditions, you know a good audition from a bad audition. And there's some truth to that, you know, but I still need and value an outside eye when it comes to my audition. So I'll often, not always, but I'll often get coaching for the auditions I have. And if I don't get professional coaching, I will at least read with another actor on We Audition and ask them for input. You know, I don't want to think that I know it all, you know, because I've received some really subtle tips that I think were and I can think of 2 instances. One where I booked the Yellowstone role because she gave me that the tip about putting what they call a button on the audition. And another one that I received an offer for, was unable to do it because of scheduling, but you get some valuable input because most of the people on that site are professional actors. Many of them are members of SAG-AFTRA. And so it's just a great site. So that is weaudition.com. Some of the other resources, there are a lot of podcasts out there that are a great way to learn. Audrey Moore, Audrey Helps Actors is her podcast. She's a seasoned working actor in the LA market. And if you do listen to her, I would suggest starting with season 1. She has a deep understanding of the industry, and that'll serve any actor, regardless of your region. She primarily, because she's in LA, she primarily focuses on LA, but she knows a lot about casting, and she really stays up on everything. And it's an excellent podcast. The other one, Second Act Actors, let me move this down here. Second Act Actors by Dr. Janet McMorty. She was originally and still is a medical doctor who resolved to become an actor. She started meeting more and more people who had made that same decision. So she interviews them on her podcast. It's interesting. Her website is secondactactors.com. And the way I met her, I found out that maintaining a website is not my passion, but I bought the URL secondactactor.com, and I posted a few blogs and this, that, and the other. And I'm not into it. You know, it's just not something I enjoy. But so I bought secondactactor.com, and then I found out that about the same time she had purchased secondactactors.com, and she very actively pursues this. Very actively produces this podcast. So I got in touch with her. She actually interviewed me for her show, and I recently sent her an email offering her that URL because I'm not going to use it. But anyway, she has a really interesting podcast. A lot of people coming into acting later in life or as a second career. So you get to hear a lot of experience on her podcast. There's also Ryan Glorioso is a casting director in New Orleans. He casts shows like Mayfair Witches, which is currently playing, The Thing About Pam, a show on becoming a god in Central Florida, and many, many, many others. And by the way, he cast actors for The Thing About Pam and on Becoming a God in Central Florida. They cast residents of Little Rock in both those shows. I'm not sure if he cast a preacher or not, but there was also someone from Little Rock cast in the show Preacher. Another actor you may have seen on social media recently, Dean Denton. Dean Denton has a film that's out right now called Devotion, and he's a local actor. He was in the FBI movie with Kevin Costner. He's been in Devotion. Ed Lowry is another actor. He was in On Becoming a God in Central Florida. He was in Preacher. He was in The Magnificent Seven. So, one thing that I think it was Bonnie Gillespie talked about was finding a pace car. And for me, Leonardo DiCaprio is not a good pace car for me, because he's laps and laps and laps ahead. But if you can find someone with just a little more experience than you that may have a career trajectory that looks something like what you might want to have, don't copy them, but look and see what actions they've taken. Look at their package, look at their headshot, look at their demo reel, look at who their representatives are, and kind of start emulating that. And so that's a couple of the my pace cars have been Ed Lowry and Dean Denton, as well as Candace Hinkle has been in tons of stuff, and Natalie Kennedy as well. So there are some other actors here in Central Arkansas that have been in some really big projects. So that's some podcasts. There's another one called, I think it's called That One Audition, that's real popular. I've not listened to it, but I've heard about it. Web resources, deadline.com and Variety Magazine. Those are two web publications that have the entertainment industry news as its focus. So you'll see cast announcements for new shows, industry news like mergers, studio news. Like I was able to find out two shows that film right next door in Oklahoma are Reservation Dogs and Tulsa King. Both of those has been picked up for another season. I happen to fit the casting for both of those shows. I could see myself easily on either one of those shows. So I was quick to let my team know that. Not that they didn't already know it, but I always tell them there's a thin line between pestering and hustling, and I try not to cross that line, but I wanted them to know that those have been picked up. So, and also just I've auditioned for both of those shows. No, I didn't audition for Tulsa King. I auditioned for Reservation Dogs a few times. And just because you're not cast, that doesn't mean that, that's why the one class I took called Book the Room, Book the Role, those are two different things. A lot of times you may not be right for that role because the person you're playing opposite is younger, taller, fatter, skinnier, whatever the case may be, but you still turn in a good audition. They may like you and remember you for future roles. So that's called booking the room. If you book the room, the casting director will remember you and have you back in. So, my mind goes two different ways when I get an audition like the show Walker. I've had about 5 auditions for Walker, and I get to thinking, golly, I guess, this is the last one. I haven't had one in a while. So I think, well, I guess I blew that. Well, not necessarily. The fact is, they wouldn't have me back 5 times if they didn't see me on that show, if they didn't like something they saw. They don't have time. They don't have time to waste. That's another thing. If you get an audition for, like I've had an audition for an 80-year-old man, and while I am up in years, I'm not 80. But I was told, and I know it's true, that the casting director would not ask for an audition from me if they didn't see me in that role. They don't have time. They don't have time to waste. So any audition I get is a great opportunity. So Variety Magazine, Deadline, and then YouTube. That's just a treasure trove of information. The SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I have hundreds of videos. You can find voice coaches, dialect coaches. You can even, I just recently found out that there's a ton of free films on YouTube if you want to watch some of the old masters at work. So there are lots of web resources nowadays. Now, I like this quote with Meryl Streep: "I need to go where people are serious about acting." That's where I want to be. That's all these things I mentioned: the podcast, the equity professional theater productions, the professional film and TV productions I've been blessed to be on. People are serious about acting, and the way forward. It's really as varied as the individuals who may be interested in becoming a professional actor. In this presentation, I've hopefully provided you with some value, information, and resources. but I would not count this as career coaching. You know, I would suggest anyone interested, find a professional career coach. Ethan Paulini is one. There are others out there. Again, find someone who's been doing it, who's been at this a while. Preferably a working actor with years of experience. That's who I've used and been very helpful. And I believe that the old trope of the struggling actor is slowly yielding to the savvier, more informed second act actors. There's a lot of us nowadays coming into the field. You know, I think the pandemic had something to do with that. It did for me. I figured that when the pandemic hit, what better time to quit my job and become a professional actor? But make use of what others have struggled so hard to learn. So there are a lot of people out there. Suggested next steps. I'm sorry. Present circumstances don't determine where you can go. They merely determine where you start. I've tried to stick to my personal experience and hope it hasn't in bad taste talking about myself too much, but that's really all I have to call on. You know, your present circumstances and what you would like to achieve will determine the exact path you will take. The main thought I'd like you to take away from this workshop is that if you take the action, you will get the results. In this profession, more than most, the results are often completely out of my control. Matter of fact, I interviewed the artistic director of the Arkansas Repertory Theater at one time, and that's why he became an artistic director, because he didn't like someone else having that much control over when he could work. But that's not my passion. My passion is being in front of the camera and is performing, and so that's what I'll stick to. But the results are completely out of my control. I must remember that the work is the performance itself, whether that be, as I mentioned earlier, whether that be an audition, whether it's a performance for TV or film, or in community theater play. You know, the love of the performing is where I have to get my fulfillment from. And I kind of had to learn that, you know, because a lot of times I would submit an audition and then sit on pins and needles. And if I didn't hear from anybody, then I was crushed, you know, and that's not the right way. You know, auditioning pretty much is the job. If I book a role, that's a promotion. But the day in and day out, I was talking to another actor, actually one of the co-founders of weaudition.com, who is a British actor, and he's got quite a few credits. And he said he has to, on average, he has to do 40 auditions to book one role. And I do keep numbers. That's something else that Audrey Moore teaches. I have what I call a show Bible, and I keep a list of all my auditions, all my callbacks, anytime I've been pinned or they check my availability for a role. The reason to do that is to know if I'm working properly, as Audrey calls it. You know, if I'm getting 60 auditions a year and I'm not booking anything, there's something wrong. Either the package is wrong, I'm not being brought in for the right roles. There's some piece of the puzzle that's not working. I'm not performing well. I need more training. But looking at the numbers and delving into that, you know, and I'll share, last year, I believe I had 42 auditions and booked 3 roles. You know, only worked 3 times last year. People, it's funny. People say, man, you're always working. No, it kind of looks that way, maybe, but very seldom. I'm always working on auditions. But anyway, the work is the performance itself. If I stay the course, I firmly believe that remarkable things will happen. Now, it may not look like what I've imagined it to look like, but I'm going to enjoy the journey and leave the destination to the muses. So I can plan the actions, but I can't plan the results. Suggested next steps, again, get involved in the local theater and film communities. And if you'll search, I don't remember which group it was, but there's actually auditions tonight for a play. There are 4 cast members, I think, and age 37 and up. One of the roles is age 37 and up. The other roles are open to all genders and ages. Get involved in local theater and film communities. Keep a lookout for local TV and film casting notices. Most of those you'll see here lately, I'm seeing most of them are for background, but not all of them. Put together a professional package, headshots, resume, demo reel. Train and practice, so you'll be ready when opportunities arise. You know, I strongly believe in the saying that luck is where preparation and opportunity meet. Maintain a positive and grateful attitude and stay the course. The positive and grateful attitude, Courtney Cunningham, who teaches the course, Book the Room, Book the Role, you know, she asked that I don't, her 10 steps that she uses are proprietary, so I don't go into that, but I have her permission to share one of the steps because a couple of them don't really have anything to do necessarily with performing, but more with attitude. And something I've started doing religiously to help maintain a positive and grateful attitude is every single morning, I write down 3 accomplishments from the day before and 5 things I'm grateful for. I do that every single morning. And, you know, the accomplishments from the day before maybe went to the grocery store. You know, it doesn't have to be something major. But there's always things to be grateful for as well. So I do that day in and day out. And then stay the course. You know, it's something, and I know starting out as late as I did, although I'm trying not to put any limitations on it at all, there may very well be some limitations, but it doesn't matter. You know, I'm enjoying the journey, particularly, again, thank you to Scarlett and Lindsay, enjoying the opportunity of passing on what little I've learned. And if I never work again, but something I do has maybe help someone else start living this dream and becoming an actor, then that's fantastic. And in conclusion, in life, the first act is always exciting, but it's the second act that's where the depth comes in. So that concludes the presentation, probably a lot quicker than we thought it was going to be. I have no idea what time it is.
It's 11:30.
Oh, hour and a half. That ain't bad.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
I can assume that the topic was so masterfully covered that it left absolutely.
I have a couple questions. How did you decide what niche or genre you were gonna shoot for, like when you're developing your acting? Like how did you, maybe you feel very complicated, like there's 3 or 4 different people inside of you and one of them might be a little insane and they go around the building. It's very specific here, but I'm just saying, like, how do you decide who you are?
Yeah, and by the time I learned about, you know, working with a stylist and coming up with a specific casting, I had had a few auditions and been in a few things, so I kind of could look on what I had been in previously. So I had that to go on, and then I had worked with Courtney Cunningham, and she gave me scenes to work on based on what she thought my casting was. Also, I did the work that Audrey Moore gave me, and I looked at shows locally who had people that looked kind of like me and what roles they played. And then also another thing, I had grown my hair out, you know, in God's Not Dead, my hair was real short. And during the pandemic, I'd grown my hair out, and my LA agent one time, she said, I love the new look. And I thought, oh, I guess this is a new look. So that started defining my casting. So there were a lot of input from other people. Bonnie Gillespie, some of her work was like posting your headshots and asking people, not friends and family, right, but outsiders, where they see your casting. And so a lot of stuff went into that. And like, I get so many auditions, oddly enough, for, you know, store clerk. And that was not one of the looks I was going for, you know, convenience store clerk. Also, I see that Chad is on here. I was in a film with Chad that I'm looking forward to coming out, where I played a Jewish talent agent. That's not a look I was going for. So just because you have a particular casting doesn't mean you won't be cast outside of that. But yeah, I had a lot of in my case, I had some experience, and then I had input from audition coaches, casting directors. Yeah, I think I did. I think I had also done a few casting director workshops and maybe it's always like if you sign up for these casting director workshops, they usually have a Q&A afterwards. So feel free to ask them, where do you see me? Do you think the scene that sometimes you pick your own scene. You could say, does this scene fit me? Sometimes if you sign up for a casting director workshop, they will assign you a scene. So you can take that information, say, well, I wonder why they assigned me that scene. They must see me as playing a sheriff or whatever the case may be. So, and it evolves, one more day of filming and we're wrapped. Good, Chad, I can't wait to see it. It's called Aging Predator, or Aging Predators, plural, Aging Predators. Look for it somewhere. Anyway, yeah, does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, thank you. I also was wondering, how much time do you spend with local film or writers or screenwriters, cinema society or anything like that? Are you involved with any of the productions or any part of helping create film in Arkansas?
Well, it's funny, people talk about creating your own content. That's kind of a new thing, creating your own content. But, there's a guy that did that a while back. His name was William Shakespeare, I think. He created his own content as well. So that's been around for a long time. I do have some friends that are screenwriters. Again, it's not, I've kind of looked into it. It's not really where my passion lies, but I'm involved with anyone who will have me. Arkansas Cinema Society, the local film festivals made in Arkansas Shorts. I try to stay involved with that. I'm not as involved in the local theater as I once was because I'm fortunate to get quite a few auditions and TV. Like when I booked Yellowstone, I sent the audition in Wednesday. I was put on a veil. They called and said, "Is he still available?" Thursday, I booked the role. Friday, I flew out to Montana. I mean, it happens that quick. And, I'm not going to be part of a stage production unless I can commit to that production. So unfortunately, theater is out for me now. Although, go ahead.
Well, you also just liked, film better, you said. I have a question from Destiny. Any online audition websites that look for remote casting? Question.
Yeah, almost all the casting is done remotely now. Almost
Cool.
all. So Actors Access, if you submit for a role on Actors Access and they like your look or they like your package, think you might fit the role, they'll send you a request to self-tape an audition. So almost all casting, even in LA now, even actors in LA don't have to, for the most part, don't have to schlep down to a studio. And some of them don't like that. Some of them perform better in the room, they call it, because they can pour on the charm or whatever the case may be. They're more likable in person. But I think the self-tape auditions are something that was pretty much caused by the pandemic, but I think that they're here to stay now. So almost all auditions are going to be via self-tape online. I will go ahead and share one other thing about that, about self-taping. I don't think Courtney would mind, but this is something else that she teaches, is when I do a self-tape, a lot of times I'll read with actors when we audition and they'll do 7, 8, 9, 10 takes. She said do 2, I do 3. I give myself 3 takes, generally speaking, because if I give myself unlimited takes, then I'm going to skimp on the work beforehand. So when I go on to We Audition to tape an audition, I need to be ready to walk on set. I need to be ready to perform at that level. And so I'll get on We Audition and I'll get a scene on its feet. Then I'll get on there and I'll do some rehearsals and stuff. But when I get on there to tape, I give myself 2 or 3 takes and that's it. There's a couple of things, not only will I skimp on the pre-work, but there's also a certain excitement when you're on set and you've got, like I remember in the Thing About Pam, it was the week of Christmas. It was like 9 p.m. on a Sunday night. And I'm doing the scene that you saw where I bring in the cup and give it to her. So there's, 30 crew people two-time Academy Award-winning actor sitting there, and there's an excitement level to perform. You know, you better get it right. You don't want to do. You're not going to be given 10 takes. You know, if so, they're going to be mad and won't bring you back. And so when you give yourself 3 takes, you can't exactly simulate that level of excitement, but it does help, I think. Does that answer your question, Destiny? Good.
Oh, what about equipment? What does your studio for your recordings look like? Like, is it just a regular camera? Is it a cell phone? Like, what are you?
Looks like
Oh,
that. I actually thought about taping my studio. A lot of the actors that I read with, and these are, you know, Los Angeles actors, they use a ring light and their cell phone. I personally don't like that. I use a Nikon DSLR camera because I like the control of the depth of and I don't know these terms, right? The depth of field or whatever, where your nose is in focus, but your ears are almost out of focus. You know, you have that, you and Lindsay both have that simulated on your background, but this glass actually does that, you know, and I think it draws the eye in. So I like the control over the depth of field, the lighting control. You know, you can film in very low light, which kind of gives a cinematic look. And then I have a 3-light setup where you have and I think it's called a key, a fill, and something. I don't know what they call them, but I have one light on one side, one light on the other, and then one light shining on my hair. And actually, going back to the community of filmmakers, I called JC Cocker, one of the greatest lighting guys I know of here locally. He's great at lighting a set. I asked him if he would help me, and he came over and helped me pick out the lighting that I used and the settings on my camera. And I've learned a little bit and experimented a little bit with that, but that's basically what he taught me years ago is what I still use. But you can, and also, you know, for me, when I first started looking at equipment, someone told me, forget the camera, worry about the sound. If they can't hear you, you might as well stay home. So on my DSLR camera, I use a preamp because I found out even like some of the more expensive cameras, like a Blackmagic camera or a Red camera, even those cinematic cameras, their preamp for audio is not good because they're not meant to record audio. So I have a preamp that I run my microphone into. It records the sound onto the camera, but it's a preamp because sound is very important. And then I use a wireless lavalier microphone. You ever called a lav mic? I use a wireless lav mic. So I pin that on me. Instead of using a microphone on the camera, it's farther away because when you do an audition, and I taught a whole class on self-tapes for women in film Arkansas, so that would take a whole nother class, and I didn't even cover much there. But the reason I like the lav mic is because my sound is automatically going to be louder than the reader, which is what you want. Also, ambient noise is not picked up as well because the microphone's real close to you. So that's my setup. And again, the seamless paper background. And I did stuff. I don't know if I can, without showing you. There's a bike hook you see up there in the corner, and another bike hook, and some clamps, and a piece of steel electrical conduit. So I got this whole thing for like $100. You can buy the roll of seamless paper on Amazon. It comes in any width that you want, just about, depending on the space you have. And it's a big old roll of seamless paper. So you use it after it gets wrinkled or wet or dirty or whatever, you just cut it off and roll out some more. And I just love the look of the seamless paper. And again, you know, you can buy, I see a lot of actors that have a little curtain rod thing that raises and lowers it. You can spend a ton of money on that stuff if you want to, but I did it on the cheap. So that's my background. And I've experimented with a lot of different backgrounds, but the seamless paper is my favorite. It really bothers me to see wrinkles. You'll see people with a wrinkled sheet behind them or something like that. And that's a pet peeve of mine. I was told that anything that may distract the people viewing it from your performance is not good. And some people would be distracted by a wrinkle or by a shadow. Now, see, in this lighting setup, I've got quite a bit of a shadow. I try not to have that on my self tapes. again, I've heard some casting directors say the quality doesn't matter. They show examples of people who have auditioned in their bathroom with horrible acoustics, but the performance was so great. And many of you may have seen the audition for who was the kid in Stranger Things, the bad boy in season 3 or whatever. He did his audition in his bedroom, sitting on a bed. You saw the audition I did for The Thing About Pam was in my kitchen. I was supposed to be a convenience store clerk, and we had a little kind of a breakfast bar thing in our kitchen. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and do that there. Now, what's funny about that is since I booked that role, I thought, that's the key. Don't film in front of so my next 6 auditions, I filmed in the backyard, in the living room, and I shouldn't have done that. It wasn't right. But sometimes it is. I remember there's one audition that I ended up getting a call back for where I did it sitting on the floor. It really seemed like the thing to do. So yeah, but pretty much as long as there's nothing to distract the people from your performance.
Any other questions? Y'all just relying on me to ask all the questions?
I haven't opened the comments, by the way. Let's see. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Chad. I'm gonna open these up now. Audition websites that look at remote casting. Yeah, Actors Access.
Do you read some of your screenwriters' friends as a script, for them to see if the dialogue is good? I mean, are you?
There's sometimes I'm closing the chat again. Sometimes folks will have table reads, what they call a table read, where they want to hear the dialogue out loud. So I have taken part of some table reads, and I'm certainly willing to do that. But it doesn't happen very often. I only know a couple of screenwriters here. Now there are some, and I mean there's some really well-known screenwriters and directors and so forth who either are from Little Rock or live in Little Rock. Graham Gordy is one. He wrote a show that was on Cinemax that I think is fantastic called Quarry. It only ran for 1 season, but I absolutely love the show. Jeff Nichols is another. Jeff Nichols and Graham Gordy, I think, came up together. Jeff may be a little bit older, I don't know. And also, I didn't know this, but Adam Driver spent every summer in Little Rock growing up. I mean, his dad printed my headshots. His dad used to work, or may still work, at Office Depot. There are, and of course, we all know about Mary Steenburgen, and we know about he's going to be starring in Taylor Sheridan's Landman, a new show that's coming. Billy Bob Thornton. So there are very successful, well-known actors that are from hereabouts.
So what do you think we need to do to make the Arkansas, I guess, writing and acting scene stronger? Is there something you think that people need?
One thing I think is more involvement with SAG-AFTRA. There are a lot of productions that just, and again, without trying not to get too political, Arkansas is a right to work state. And as long as that's true, then SAG-AFTRA won't be a viable option for a lot of people. But I would like to see more union productions. So I advocate almost anytime I see a casting notice for a non-union film, a lot of times I'll contact those folks and see if I can't switch them to doing a union film. It's not as expensive as you might think. There are several different types of signatory agreements available. Also, the film commissioner, Christopher Crane, I think he does a great job. Most recently, once he attracted HBO's True Detective, shot in Northwest Arkansas, that was huge. And since then, there have been a lot of other productions. So their office does a great job. And from what I understand, it's a one-man show. I mean, I say their office, I don't think he has much of a staff, if any, but he does a great job. The tax incentives, we have wonderful tax incentives in place that they have now codified, and used to, from what I understand, those funds came out of the governor's discretionary fund, which meant like the year that there were the floods, there was no money for film and TV. All that money had to go to the floods, but now it's actually part of the budget. And Arkansas has a great incentive up to, I think it's 20% and an additional 10% for your local hires. Oklahoma has us beat because I think they offer that same incentive. But then on top of that, I believe it's the Cherokee Nation. If you film on their reservation, I think they offer another 10% or maybe even more. So you're going to see a lot of productions in Arkansas and Oklahoma. So that's the thing that kind of a pet peeve of mine is when a film is filmed locally and there's not a single cast member cast locally. It just it aggravates me because I know the level, and I'm not talking about me. I know some of the other performers here that are absolutely outstanding actors, and I think a lot of times the thought is, oh, they're local, they can't be any good, and that's absolutely not true. So getting the word out that there are talented people both in front of and behind the camera. A lot of times it's not viable to film out of state because they have to bring their entire crew with them, the cinematographer and the gaffers and the key grips and all that. But that's not the case. We have a wealth of resources, not only in Central Arkansas. And another thing that I don't like to see is the kind of division between Northwest Arkansas and Central Arkansas. It seems, I can drive to Fayetteville quicker than I can drive across LA. We should be more unified than we are. And also Chad is up there in Missouri, up in I think the Springfield area. And there are a lot of resources. You couple those two together, and then Oklahoma as well. There are a ton of local resources, and just getting people to realize that they don't have to bring everybody in from LA, and that there are tons of cast and crew available locally. And how to get that word out, I don't know. I don't know what all the Arkansas Film Commissioner does. I don't know what his day in and day out is. I like to think that he, I sometimes think maybe he could be more proactive. He may be very proactive, and I'm just not aware. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I don't know how you can get that word out. I know we did Little Rock did a commercial about the FedEx thing, when we basically turned down the was it FedEx or Amazon, whatever it was. They did a public campaign. I don't know if it would justify doing some type of, I doubt it, but I would like to get that word out somehow.
Yes, Destiny? Uh-oh, your audio's not working.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now I can. Now I can.
Can't. If you want to drop the question in the chat, I'll read it for you. Darn, I wanted to hear what she was going to ask. Oh, when it comes to finding your type in acting, is it supposed to be singular or multiple?
It depends. I mean, for me, it was multiple. I basically picked 5 looks, if I'm not mistaken, and feel free to visit my IMDb page and look at my headshots. But the one I use most often, let's see if I stop my video, if we'll see one. Stop video. Yeah, that's kind of my go-to headshot. I call it my Yellowstone headshot. So that was for Westerns or neo-Westerns. I have another one actually in a cowboy hat, which was a little more, toward the Western. I have a look at, which I'm not real pleased with, a couple of, I'll tell you what, it got so specific working with Buckley. One one casting that I thought was really interesting that she said she could see me playing is a trained professional, a lawyer, a doctor, scientist, something like that, who is from a small town. This is very specific, who's from a small town, went away to perhaps Harvard or Yale or some Ivy League college, but then decided to come back and practice in the small town. Now that's really specific, you know. So for me, it was several. And then I did one, I have a ratty old Marine Corps t-shirt that I wear. I was one as a homeless guy. So for me, it was about 5 different castings, which is really quite a few, I suppose. Keep in mind though, when you get the shots, the headshots, you know, you pay for each look. You know, you pay so much for the session, and then you pay additional for each finished look that you get. But I would strongly suggest that you don't make those decisions on your own, that you get input, again, not from friends and family. They mean well, but oftentimes they don't know the industry, or they're going to have they're going to see you differently than someone who is not connected to you. And again, used to on Bonnie Gillespie's Self-Management for Actors site, they would do that. I don't know if maybe the Self-Tape Ninja site is still active, but you can get that kind of input. What she had, Bonnie used to offer, she still offers coaching, career coaching, and they would do a thing where you make a Google survey or whatever, and you post a headshot and you ask several questions. You know, where do you see this person playing? What age range? What, you know, even Audrey Moore talks about her income. She would play a person this kind of an income, you know, because there are some people that just would not play a rich person well. There are some people that would not play a poor person well. You know, so it's and that can change. Again, the 2 looks that my team wanted me to get that I don't have. One was a helpful hardware guy, right? So I got, because they're cheap. I bought like 5 different aprons and worked with again. I worked with Buckley, and you know, to come up with an apron with a pencil in it for the helpful hardware guy, but also the same look could be the butcher who gets rid of bodies for the mafia. You know what I mean? That's kind of the same look. So you can have the same outfit. And I asked her also to help me not only with looks for headshots, but for auditions as well. So I dressed for the auditions as well. The other look that my manager wanted was what we decided to call avant-garde CEO. So this is like your new type of chief executive officer of a company that may be wearing a $10,000 suit and no shoes. You know, like what's his name, Richard, whatever, that owns Virgin Records, Virgin Air, and all that stuff. You know, long hair, laid back, but billionaire. You know, you see. So that was the other look that they wanted me to go for. So that changes. Again, the headshots that I have are still, even though they're 2 years old, they're still great. I've lost a little bit of weight since then, so my face is a little thinner, but they're still serving me well. But I will occasionally, you know, every year or so, look at those and rotate some in and out. Now my demo reel, you know, I showed you all that demo reel earlier. Much of that footage came from student films or local indie films. And now that I have footage from Yellowstone and The Thing About Pam, and no dialogue, but I have a couple of scenes with John Malkovich and some movies that he shot here, but no talking in it, but some good screen time. So I talked to them about redoing my demo reel. They said, no, don't touch your demo reel. You know, that demo reel is still serving me well. I have performance clips from those other productions. And so that's something you upload to Actors Access, your headshots, your demo reel. You can also upload performance clips, and then you decide, Destiny, you were talking about in particular about submitting for roles and so forth. That's the way that works. When you submit for a role, you pick which headshot you want to send to casting directors. You pick what reel, and of course, with Actors Access, you have to pay for everything you upload. It's not real cheap, but you just pay it once. But You decide what headshot, what reel you're going to send. You can also send, they have something called a size card where you give your, the sizes that you wear. You can attach your size card in some cases, and notes. You can also, there's a place for notes, which I was told to keep very brief. I usually put U.S. Marine Corps veteran, fully vaccinated. That's usually the notes I put, not much more than that.
Thank you.
Have you played any like Irish mob parts? I'm looking at this one picture and I'm like, I could see you playing in the
Yeah, that was,
IRA.
it's funny. That was that shirt, you're talking about the collarless shirt, right?
Yeah.
That was for a period look, because there are a lot of Westerns and so forth. So I used that look a lot for Westerns. And I did use it like when I had that Scottish role, I think I wore a version of that with something else over it. Layers is good for a lot of stuff too. But oddly enough, that same look, someone thought it would be great because I was doing like a Han Solo type character. And it was great for that too, so some of that stuff is very versatile. But the thing about casting is, I did audition for that role with a Scottish accent, not a lot of dialogue, and because of some stuff about the film I can't really say, the accent is not all that important. But if they really want someone with a Scottish accent, there are a ton of Scottish actors in America. They can get an authentic Scottish accent if they want it. That's not to say I shouldn't work on it more. I'm curious, the film I did with Chad, I tried to do a Jewish accent or a Hebrew accent. I'm not sure about that. I did as best I could. The director seemed to like it, but I'm curious to see how the public receives it because it's not something I've been trained with. I did a Polish accent for a play we did locally called Karski's Message. So I've done some accents. I've also, again, that's another huge difference I should have mentioned about the difference between an equity production, a professional production, and an amateur production. Now, in Karski's Message, we did bring in a couple of Polish nationals, one who has lived here since they were a kid, so their accent was not as strong. Another person who moved here later in life, so their accent was very strong. We had some coaching from them. But Arkansas Shakespeare Theater, they brought in a dialect coach, and they would work with you one-on-one. Like, for instance, when you do Shakespeare, it's not done with an English accent traditionally. It's done with what they call an American Standard accent, which is no accent. And I have a very distinct Southern accent, so it's hard. And she told me to never lose that, but I have to learn to kind of tone it down a little bit if possible.
Well, we have reached the end of time, but if you guys have like one more question, I'm sure that we can get that because I did hog up a lot of questions. So does anybody have anything else that they wanted to add? No? Okay. Well,
Thank you all very much for listening.
thank you. Thank you, Barry, for being here. This was a great workshop. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.